Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Donnie Lowry.
And I'm Kirk Prine.
And we are delighted to see you and delighted to welcome you to this Queer Tribe conversation. Conversations that we have, every 4 to 6 weeks, I suppose, with a queer luminary. Oh, here comes Barbara. I have to keep admitting people.
Cool.
Anyway, Barbara's coming on. And so we're delighted that you're here, and we're going to get right into it. And our guest today, of course, is my beloved husband, Kirk Prine.
and someone I will draw into parts of the conversation. So we'll have you muted maybe at the beginning, but we'll ask you to unmute at times to give us feedback, thoughts, questions, as we kind of develop some thoughts and concepts together.
Yes.
So, and we're growing as we speak.
Yes,
so,
we're growing. We love it when we grow.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me tell you about my baby over here. And Dr. Kirk Prine, he has a title, brings unique gifts, skills, and experience to being a body story life coach, healer, and queer activist. Rich in awakenings, Kirk's own story as a sexual abuse survivor and thriver allowed him to develop extraordinary gifts of listening and seeing beyond what is apparent. Mystical experiences and learning in the behavioral sciences have grounded Kirk as a healer in flesh and spirit community and the Missing Thread Mystery School, which teaches the wisdom of how to set you free resides in your body. Kirk's 5 years in seminary Bible college training and 7 years in graduate studies taught him to ask questions about holistic healing that few people were willing to ask. Exploring across spiritual traditions and gathering the best scientific understandings of how healing takes place has been Kirk's purpose and passion. This was demonstrating significantly during Kirk's 17-year practice as a psychotherapist, where he constantly faced hundreds of clients and friends with AIDS. By exploring the question of why 3 to 10% of people never die from a life-threatening disease enabled Kirk to weave together mythology of healing and success that applies to anyone who is a challenge in their expression of health, wealth, relationship, and our purpose. By listening to the body, Kirk healed himself of the stories that held him back. In addition, his training as a certified massage therapist, traditional Reiki master, and ritualist has added to the skill set he blends with Donnie, that's me, to bring liberation to their clients. Oh, it sounds so exciting. I wish I could do all that. Anyway,
there we go.
There we go. All kinds of things. Well, we want to go things. So we should get right into it because we only have.
Let's dive in.
We're going to dive in. Okay. So the first question is, baby, tell us about your spiritual journey as it relates to being a queer elder from a young person, a boy, as to an older person.
All right. Good. So I'm going to throw out little tidbits around my own journey, as well as a few concepts and stories from other traditions, as hopefully you all kind of invite yourself into imagining, being born on this planet and the cycle of life that we're all living in and going through, and depending on which gender you identify with, and know that we're talking to everybody today, and knowing, however you identify, though, that all genders are inside of us. And so if I say he or she or they, it's simply trying to include everybody into this conversation. But let me get started. The frame I'd like to use is one familiar, and our beloved Barbara's on the call as well, and she's heard me go through all of this before. But when we Barbara and Donnie and I actually have spent a good deal of time in the past at MCC San Francisco, and we used to sing a chant there. And then we started singing it in Flesh and Spirit community. And the chant was, "We are the ones. We are the ones we've been waiting for." And as we talk about eldership today and what that means to you in your life, I want you to think more about not only the I, but the we. The we meaning that it's going to be together that we change the world rather than it's the I that changes the world. And that's where the concept of eldership to me is so essential. You know, in our community of Flesh and Spirit, we have like 6 different archetypes that we play with. The peaceful warrior, who's willing to know him or her or their self and drop their fears. The lover who's available to intimacy and willing to drop his or her their grief. The sacred prostitute, which is on a journey of embodying their service and dropping their shame. And then the elder, which we're talking about today, which is all about knowing we belong and taking our place in community. And if we are queer, all of us in the world, there are a bunch of books by Prine Brown that are out, and I know some of you probably read them, and she talks a lot about belonging. And so as you think about yourself in your of eldership, think about how you felt like you didn't belong, or where you didn't feel like you belong, or where you might still at times feel like you don't belong. And that baggage, though, then influences us being in community. And if community is really part of the formula that I think throughout time, but especially in these times, my imaginings are that much more is going to be happening through community rather than a guru, through a teacher. That the teachers are within the tribe, but every component and person in the tribe is sacred and honored for the gifts that they bring. So, and so that song, "We Are the Ones," it started actually. There was a woman, June Jordan, who June Jordan was in South Africa during apartheid. And so she actually was the first person to kind of invoke those words. We are the ones we've been waiting on. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And to change the political tide of divisiveness, of black and white, literally being separate and bringing equality to all people. So We Are the Ones has a rich history. But later than that, a Hopi indigenous man, elder, spoke of "We Are the Ones" as well. And I actually want to read what he wrote, and then I'm going to tell some more kind of stories to map out the queer boy, the queer man, the queer elder, and the queer ancestor, or whatever gender you want to assign in that. So where's my little glasses? Or actually, would you just read it? That
I'll
would
read
be
it.
easier.
Yes.
Here,
So
so starting there to there.
Okay.
So he's got better eyes.
Yes, I can read.
Yeah, there we go. Here, from this Hopi elder, this is what he says.
Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in right relation? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truce. Create your community. Be good to each other and do not look outside yourself for the leader. This could be a good time. There is a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid they will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel that they are being torn apart and they will suffer greatly. Know the river has its destination. The elders say we must go off the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above water. See who was in there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves, banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary, and that we do now must be done in a sacred manner in celebration. We are the ones we've been waiting for, the elders of the Arizona Hopi Nation.
Great. So we are the ones. If we're all born into the world, my birth, my parents had no idea that I would be saying any of this stuff, I'm sure. And I'm sure they're looking on with pride now, but would roll their eyes in the past if they heard me say all of this. But in some indigenous tribes, and Drake, you can jump in about this as well. But in some indigenous tribes, even in Jewish lineage and some Muslim lineage, and so among religions as well, as far as tribal stuff. In Africa, Melodoma Somé talks about the African Dagara shaman, Melodoma Somé, talks about in their communities, what they would do is they have what are called the ecstatic, what I call the ecstatic gatekeepers. He calls the gatekeepers. And the gatekeepers are actually queer folk. And they're queer folk whose role in the community is actually to go into their caves or into their sacred sites and to get into ecstatic space and to open up, to welcome the ancestors for wisdom, for guidance, for information, for the next steps, and for a birth time, oftentimes welcoming the information of what might we name this child. So thinking about yourself and your naming, my name means the assembly of believers, the church. And so Kirk means the church. And I thought it just uncanny that my parents chose that name, because what have I done all of my life but assembled believers in something greater than themselves, or the something greater that's inside of themselves. And it's been my mission. So my very name actually is kind of projecting out the essence of who I am. And in tribal communities, they often would name somebody. So they would get into trance, but the delicious part, especially for all of us queer men who are about to do our ecstatic massage training in the end of next week, when they went into their caves, part of what they would do to get ecstatic is actually make love, to touch each other, to awaken each other through sensualness, as they welcome the ancestors, they welcome the earth and the sky and all that is to come be with them. And it's through being a gatekeeper that the information comes. So how many times have you been kind of in an ecstatic space and something pops in, that aha, or that intuitive thing that you didn't know, or comes through. That's what gatekeepers are all about, and honored in the tribe, and which is just a really unique thing, of course, still in our time, that there are tribes that still honor us as queer folk, and that we're part of the whole of all of the gifts that the tribe has. So Melodoma Some's actual name is Melodoma Some, obviously, but what Melodoma Some's name means is bridge to the white people. And little did he know that his journey, after he was named by the tribe, by the gatekeepers in the tribe, that he would indeed then play out that as a prophecy that he's embodied, just like Kirk has been kind of my prophecy in a sense. And he went to school abroad, got trained there, and then he had the revelation, I'm supposed to teach the ways of indigenous people of Africa to bring healing to the planet, and especially to bring it to the West and to white people. So that's been much of his work. So thinking about, when you came in, did you feel welcomed? So the other image I'll put in this storytelling is if you have not read it, from years ago, Andrew Raymer's book called Two Flutes Playing. And in Two Flutes Playing, Andrew Raymer, our queer elder, speaks about what would it have been like if we were born into queer tribes. What would it have been like if we were welcomed and celebrated as queer people into the tribe automatically? And that was part of his storyline that he developed and kind of channeled from his own guides. So, last story I'll tell, since we're kind of going from birth to boy to elder and then ancestor, is, Donnie and I have a teacher in Bali, Indonesia, and her name is Shankari the Alchemist. And Shankari, any rate, in Bali, Indonesia, the culture is that when a baby is born, the culture is that the baby is held by the mother for 110 days. So it never leaves her body. And the thought or concept of spirituality behind that for Balinese people was that this is the closest thing to God that we have. So that a newborn child is still kind of in that soup of consciousness. They haven't forgotten the consciousness from which they came to come into the earth. And so for 110 days, there are celebrations about the divinity of the child. And then in 110 days, the next thing that happens is the mother finally takes the child and places it for the first time on the earth. And they have another ritual and celebrate the humanity of the child. Well, I don't know about you. First of all, just as a human being, nobody did that. I was not held and honored as the divine, and I was not then honored as human, and I certainly was not honored as a queer boy and a queer person in this journey. So thinking, how can you welcome that kind of energy of support for yourself? So when we do our rituals for this ecstatic massage, part of what we're doing is kind of, recapturing what's some of the innocence, the playfulness of that child within us before they got wounded. And also bringing forth, the places where you don't feel like you belong. How can you let that go? Can you let some of that go so there's more space for you to be kind of like Melodoma Somé, become the bridge builder, become the person who really is not just talking activism of inclusion, but in his or her or their heart, be inclusion. So they're living an embody of inclusion. So boy or girl or they. And then we'll move to man for a second. And I think of, and this may be just a little bit explicit for some of you, but I think some of you are on here because you like it, the juicy stuff. And you can all laugh. I can't see your faces, but there you are. The queer man, there actually there's a interesting in tribal cultures, but in Africa, how many different tribes have an acknowledgement of us in different ways. And so there's another tribe in Africa where the rights of the boy to become a man actually involve some ritual. And in that ritual, it is explicitly sexual. So the elders of the tribe actually are intimately sexual with the boys that have now become men, and sharing their bodily fluids with them. And they're sharing them not as a sexual act of procreation or understand that kind of understanding. They're sharing that because they believe those fluids are part of the life force that's being exchanged. And so the elder is blessing the boy in this case with his manhood, with that life force energy. But imagine if, what were for any of you when you became a man, a woman, when you realize that you're transitioning, and Drake, you can jump in here with me about this, but what would have been a celebration that would seal that and propel you more into wholeness is kind of what I'm getting at. But I've given a few thoughts, and I'm anxious to see if Drake has anything he wants to chime in at this point so far.
Well, one of the things that struck me is that you're talking about us finding the teachers within.
Yes.
Instead of without. And that happens to be one of the lessons that we work with in shamanic training. So yes. I teach sessions on going around the medicine wheel. And after we've cleared out trauma and drama and cleared out energy yes. not serving us, then we start to empower ourselves. And the very first step of that is taking a piece of paper and thanking every teacher that we've ever had and wrapping that on a stick and burning it in a fire. Yes. Because from that point on, you're self-sourcing, you're communicating with your higher self. Yes. You know what the path is. And as queer elders, we've kind of played that role since we came on the planet. So it's like, we came here with a purpose, and that purpose is blazing a trail. For those that are following behind us, things have changed incredibly for us since we began that trail. Many of us were around for Stonewall. Yeah. All right. And so we started these journeys, which are now going to be carried on by the younger folks coming on the planet who seem to be much more gender fluid, much more open to sexual and gender identity concepts and stuff like that. So we've been working really hard. We've expended a lot of energy, but we should, at this point, maybe even do a ceremony, as you're talking about, to honor everything that we've accomplished so far. To just look back at where we began and what we've accomplished. And right now we're in very, very trying times. This is all for a specific purpose.
Yes.
For our consciousnesses to expand and ascend. And so we signed up to be here, and it was just my piece. I wanted to bring in the metaphysical aspect of the elder energy. And so that's kind of the things I was thinking about as you were talking.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and part of what I know about us is, LGBTQIAI, is that we're creative people, and so the creativity's there. But the acknowledgement or the consciousness of acknowledging each step of our journey has oftentimes been remiss or void or lacking or almost made impossible from the outer culture. And so bringing those rituals back, I believe, and again, this call is simply about germinating ideas for you to see what resonates and what doesn't. But I believe will actually move us into what I call remembering who we are at a deeper level. Because, until, as long as there's oppression, we're fighting oppression to release the consciousness. And that starts within us, but it means changing the consciousness around us. And so the more that we really come into celebrating all the parts of who we are, and each step of the journey is a way of, I believe, helping to reawaken the depth of who we are and to take us into the new vision of who we're becoming. Because, this planet's gone through huge changes, my opinion. And those big changes of consciousness are going to call us into our eldership. And ultimately, once we're elders, eventually we're going to be ancestors. Oh, so I'm calling upon ancestors all the time in my rituals. Come. And I feel their presence when I ask them to come. Well, I will be one of those people at some point in time that others will be calling on, and just kind of playing with, bridge from boy, girl, they to man, woman, they, and elder, he, she, they. And then ultimately, in that consciousness, we're going to be able to support, just like we've been calling on them to bless them and to support us. So those are just kind of little seeds I want to plant as we keep going. So let me move it further to so in my childhood growing up, this is one of the first people I had ever heard about who was coming out on the big. So this is ex-Sergeant Matt Levitch, who outed himself in the military and got, of course, defrocked for doing that. But what was he doing? I think he was moving into man to elder energy. that he was not about to apologize for who he was, and wanted us to be acknowledged like everyone else, every other service member, to have not only the equal rights, but the equal celebration of the contributions we all are making for freedom and justice. So moving from boy to man to elder, at least on my journey as is kind of a cisgendered person, the elder, one of my elders is Don Clark. And if anybody knows Don Clark and knows I have been out of contact with him for 3 years. So if anybody on this call actually knows, one, is he still on the planet, or not? Because that would be of great help to me. But for many years, Don Clark was my mentor, and Don Clark his teaching was all about, what is your gay truth? So elder wisdom for him is knowing your gay truth. What as a trans man, trans woman, as a lesbian, as a gay man, as a bisexual, what is your queer truth that you came into the world and to offer to the planet? And so as a psychotherapist, he was quite pioneering. So he was out marching on the streets. I just want to honor you, whatever plane you're on, Don Clark. I want to honor you for all that you've brought to us, especially as queer men, to be healers on the planet. But Don Clark marched in the streets in New York and the East Coast long before Stonewall even happened, with people who were psychotherapists. And so he got groups of psychotherapists together who were queer, walking through the streets, protesting for gay rights. And so he told me the story one time, and it's very much like in the ancient Hindu temples. They used to have a place where you'd go into the temple, and of course you'd pay homage to each of the deities as you move into each court of the temple. But when you get into the last court of some of the temples of ancient times, they would actually all take off their clothes. It would be in the dark, and they were entering into the dark holy space. And in that dark holy space, they would touch each other as they move through naked the sacredness of being in the temple. So here's Don Clark in the early 1900s, and he gets all of his psychotherapy queer men together in a room, turns the lights off, and says, "Take your clothes off. Now, deliberately notice how you feel with your clothes off. Next, deliberately notice as you move around the room and you start to bump into your brothers, what you feel. Notice as you touch each other, what's happening." So, and then he'd say, "Okay, your clothes are over there, turning the lights on, we're going to process." So for me, it's kind of like, oh, he just guided them into the dark place of the Hindu temple and just allowed them to have processed material that was experiential. And just going, oh, wow, I was really afraid, or my shame came up, or all of those things of not belonging, came up for me, or wow, I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry to be touched or to touch. And so much got revealed that allowed these men to accelerate their healing in ways that would not have happened if it had just been a talk support group. So I honor my elder, Don Clark, for sharing that story with me. So eldership. When we do our ecstatic massage a week from now, one of the rituals that we do is just that. You know, we do breath work. It's kind of like the Buddha. The Buddha used to actually, on his early part of the journey, and I see Buddha as an elder in and of himself as well, in which Buddha learned from one of his teachers a technique, a breath technique, that to go hold your breath underwater. And so we're going to do an ecstatic massage. And after men have touched each other's bodies, including genitals, and raising energy, for them to have an inner journey that takes them into an inner space of connecting through the veil to their ancestors, or to whatever it is that they open up to. That experience is much like what Buddha did, which is you hold your breath at the end, and then you let go, and that rush of energy kind of flows through your body. That Kundalini experience happens that opens you up, or opens the portal up, or opens up, we call it the bridge between the worlds kind of breath. So we will do that, but there are so many ways, just like you were marking for us, Drake. I love that the ritual of getting a stick and then burning the stick in memory of your teachers. So this ritual of embodying this ecstatic experience allows you to welcome in. And when I do it, in almost every single time I've ever done it, I've done it thousands of times probably now in my life. I see ancestors. I often see, one of my soulmates was Wayne Hadley, talented man who died from AIDS. You would all have loved and adored him. But he often visits me when I do an ecstatic massage, and I get, hi Wayne, and then he's gone, but I see him, and it's kind of, oh, I got a collect call going here. Would you pick up the line? And he does. So at any rate, for each person, what you experience on this ecstatic journey, whether you see yourself as a gatekeeper, the elders are closer to, just like the child in the Balinese story, the elders are now closer to than the final journey into ancestorhood. So I'll tell you one more story as I move into this. Well, a number of years ago, I had a client come in, and he had come to one of our ecstatic massage things, and he said, I want to do an ecstatic massage with you regularly. And so he would come and he'd get on the table and he'd do breath work, and what I know is how we do our breath work and what happens with our head has a lot to do with the flow of energy. So we would get to the point where he's going to do his big draw, and he's feeling ecstatic because I've touched all his body, including his genitals. Energy's being raised. We've welcomed in energy. And he tilts his head back, and then he kind of does a death breath and then holds his breath for his big draw. And each time he would do that, he would see what he called angels, or light beings. And sometimes he would see dead people come into the room, and this would happen repeatedly. And, you know, once in a while, those things happen on occasion with people, and that's really cool. But this was like happening every single time we got together for this massage. And I started musing at one point, going, you know, the thin veil between him and the other side is so thin. It's not like hardly anybody I've ever worked with. And then like a month went by and he didn't call. And then 2 months went by, he didn't call. And then I got an email saying he had died.
Mm.
And I went, oh my God, of course. He was so close to the other side. And every time we did an ecstatic massage, and I've got chills going all over the place, but he would just kind of light up, and that bridge would be built, and he'd see the people from the other side kind of welcoming over. What we didn't both know was that he was going to die, because he was doing great. So there was no reason to think, oh, he's going to die and da 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 da. So that's an incredible story to me of the thinness of the veil from elder to becoming ancestor. And then the last story I'm going to tell you, and then it will open up the lines for questions, because I'm kind of scattering all kinds of things, and especially want Drake to jump in anymore, especially if you want to. But the other story is a completion story. For me, our journeys are about, of course, coming into being and being in service to ourselves and to the planet. That's kind of everybody's mission. But for us as queer, or anybody today, especially, to be seen, heard, known, and validated means that you're celebrated for all of who you are. And being celebrated for all of who you are is essential to wholeness, and adding to the consciousness that is on this side and on that side to be connected. So I tell you that story to frame this last story. One of my friends, not this one, but I'm plugging it as well. So this is our beloved Alan Seward, who's a sacred intimate and does our web design for us, and has been a part of our community. I bring him out just as to say he's one of zillions of sacred intimates around the world. And one of my friends who is sacred intimate had an older man in his late 80s who came to see him, and came for a massage, just signed up for a massage. When he got on the massage table and asked my friend about the massage, he said, well, you know, I've been, I make tear up. I've been married all of my life, and my wife, she just died. And but all of my life, I've never been with a man, and all of my life I wanted to be. So he said, is it okay if I become sexual with you during the massage? And my brother, who is you know, a sacred intimate, and that's his work, and he was just like, oh, well, of course, yes, you know, how can I, you know, be of help to him? So they actually had a sexual experience in the massage itself. And just like the other story, this man, my friend, the sacred intimate, told me that he found out that he'd had this experience with this man who they had the sexual interaction, And he found out that just a couple weeks later, the man died. So I call that completion work. This man had, for all of his life, wanted to have a same-sex experience. And here he was at a point where all the things that were blocking him from that were out of the way. And he allowed himself to ask for help and get that sexual experience. And 2 weeks later, he died. So ancestorship. Ancestorship, I think our job, and this is again just my musings, but I think all of our job is back to the peaceful warrior again, knowing ourselves, facing our fears, so that we can be fully present in each step of this journey, from birth to man, woman, they, to elder, he, she, they, to ancestor, he, she, they. So there we go. I gave you a few seeds that you probably wouldn't normally get when talking about an elder workshop. So we will open up the lines for just a few minutes. I see I kind of ran a little bit. But if anybody has any questions or comments, knowing that, you know, this topic is so lush with so many directions that we could be talking about in community together. But anybody want to say hello, and it just, who are you? And if you have a question or a thought or a comment.
Yes, go ahead and just unmute yourself and speak up. I may not always see you. Go ahead and unmute and speak up if you wish, if you have something you'd like to ask or say.
Anybody?
I just want to say thank you. I learned a lot.
Oh, good.
A lot of new information.
Oh, good. Well, that was my hope, just to kind of feed, because I know anybody who comes on these calls already knows they're on a journey and know a lot of things. But yeah, just to keep expanding each other is part of my mission, at least. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? And what happened over there?
Oh, we just got, that's from Terrence.
Okay.
Thank you, Terrence.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Anything else before we close our time?
I'll just add one thought.
Yeah, please.
You mentioned, you know, us becoming ancestors soon.
Yes.
And so a lot of eldership seems to be looking backwards over what's happened, or, you know, dealing with the issues of the present, but it's also a good thing to be planning your journey.
Yes.
So be thinking, what is it I want to do when I pass over?
Yes.
What is it I want to accomplish, or, you know, create that vision, because it's definitely going to be within your power to attain that when you do pass over. And so if you want to become a spirit guide or an angel or whatever it is, when you reunite with people who have passed over, you know, start putting those affirmations out there.
Great, juicy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's my thinking as well. But yeah, just even allowing yourself to kind of imagine what happens to this consciousness afterwards, and how much can I help create what that journey looks like. I love that. Thank you, Drake. Anybody else before last closing? Great. Well, thank you all for being on this call, and just remember, and especially Drake, thank you for kind of being my wingman tonight, and my beloved Donnie. We will be doing, you know, more calls soon. Our calendar is filled. Fleshandspirit.org is filled with all kinds of events all the way through winter solstice that we will be doing and sharing here as well. So thank you, beloveds, and namaste.
Namaste.
Bye, Barbara.
Bye.
Thank you so much.